This is the Washington Times front page for Wednesday, October 5th, 2022. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has tested a new ballistic missile with the capacity to carry a nuclear weapon. Military reporter Mike Glenn reports the test streaked over Japan before plunging into the Pacific Ocean about 2,800 miles to the east. It was the first North Korean missile launch over Japan since 2017 and prompted immediate military drills from Japan, South Korea, and the United States. U.S. Marine Corps jet fighters and the Japan Self-Defense Force conducted a bilateral exercise over the Sea of Japan, and the South Korean Air Force and U.S. Air Force staged their own aerial maneuvers. The tangled history between Japan and South Korea has complicated American attempts to coordinate security policy between the two countries and present a united front to North Korea, National Security Team leader Guy Taylor reports. U.S.-led efforts to counter the North Korean threat have been challenged by simmering tensions between South Korea and Japan that date back to Japan's colonial domination of the Korean Peninsula in the early 20th century. Tensions rose so high in 2019 that South Korea threatened to cancel a key intelligence-sharing pact with Japan. South Koreans still bristle at Japan's treatment of the country, first as a colony and then during World War II. Japanese officials say the country made reparations long ago and have accused the Koreans of trying to revive historical grievances for domestic political gain. Across the South, attempts to change voting practices after the 2020 election have met with protests from Democrats and minority voting advocates. But Alex Sawyer reports federal courts have generally found the states to be on solid footing. Most of the rulings are preliminary, and major decisions will likely establish the legal playing field for voting changes before 2024. For now, election laws survive. Texas bars drive-through voting, limits ballot drop boxes, and imposes an ID requirement for voting by mail. And Florida has imposed new rules on drop boxes and mail-in balloting. You can read all of these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. You can also find our entire lineup of news, commentary, and sports podcasts at WashingtonTimes.com/podcasts. Democrats are highlighting recent revelations about Republican Senate candidates Herschel Walker and Mehmet to try and shift voters' minds as the midterm campaigns enter their final month. Walker, an anti-abortion Republican running to unseat Senator Raphael Warnock in Georgia, paid a woman to have an abortion in 2009, according to reporting by the Daily Beast. Seth MacLachlan reports Walker's son Christian took to social media to describe his father as a deadbeat dad and far from the family man that he portrays himself to be. Less than 24 hours earlier, it was a somewhat similar story in the Senate race in Pennsylvania. Online outlet Jezebel reported that Oz was involved in medical research studies that led to the deaths of 300 dogs. Some Republicans said that Walker's campaign is finished. They predicted GOP voters, including moderates and women living in the suburbs, will not be able to stomach voting for him. And finally, an Inspector General's report found that hundreds of Afghans from last year's airlift did not receive COVID-19 or other vaccinations. Stephen Dinan reports investigators couldn't say exactly how many Afghans avoided vaccination. They said the Department of Homeland Security reported that fewer than 600 walked away without the shots in the early weeks of the evacuation, but spotty records made it impossible to evaluate that claim. Others walked out of military base camps before final clearance, a process that was supposed to ensure that they were vaccinated. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in any major podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.